Thank you for streaming the Finding Your Way podcast today, where Vermont's Hartford High School students are raising mental health awareness and reducing stigma in the process through open discussion. The Finding Your Way podcast is sponsored by Vermont's National Alliance on Mental Illness and is student-run and produced by Hartford High School students. Please know that the content in these episodes may be triggering. If you are in crisis or you think you may have an emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. If you're having suicidal thoughts, please text Vermont's 24-hour crisis text line for round-the-clock support 7 days a week with access to counselors via text messaging. Text VT to 741741. Please visit namivt.org and the Ending the Silence program website for more resources. The content in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your mental health professional or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your condition. NAMI Vermont and Hartford High School do not recommend or endorse any particular treatment providers or treatments, but we do recommend and endorse talking about mental illness.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm here with Dakin, a Hartford high schooler, Hartford, Vermont. And this is our first episode of Finding Your Way, first podcast episode, Finding Your Way. This came about from a NAMI Vermont presentation that myself and Levi Reyes, a senior, class of 2022, a UVM senior, gave at Hartford High School. And we had a pretty good time, and the students were inspired enough that they wanted to continue talking about mental health and sharing their experiences in the way that myself and Levi did as part of the Ending the Silence program. So that's where this podcast came from. And it's really cool that we get together and connect and for the high schoolers to end their own silence and lessen the stigma around mental health and really help other high schoolers and other people in high schools in general, not just them, but parents and teachers and faculty and friends and all around, find their own way. And the hope is that today and in the future, listening to Dakin's story and other students will hopefully inspire you to be more open and gain confidence and autonomy and resources in supporting your own mental health. So I'm super pumped to be here. That's a little bit about me. My name's Alex. I live in Burlington, Vermont. And I'm here with a special someone for our first ever episode. So Dakin, why don't you introduce yourself? Well, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you, and introduce yourself and just share a little bit about who you are and how your relationship with mental health and mental illness.
All right. I'm Dakin. I'm a sophomore at Hartford High School. I play soccer and basketball here at Hartford. And I deal with some anxiety, and I'm here to talk about that.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. At what point did you realize that the anxiety was an issue and was impacting your life?
When I started noticing it more at school, and it was kind of harder to focus and harder to think in class about just what we're doing in class, and just kind of being anxious about after school activities and everything kind of. I think that's kind of when I noticed it the most.
So do you mean that there was was there a sense of overwhelm that you were thinking about things that you weren't doing and there was just too much to do without the time to do it kind of thing? Or do you mind describing a little bit more about it?
I guess yeah, definitely I like that word overwhelming. Kind of just overwhelmed in school and just feeling like kind of jittery almost. And, like it's hard to like just like think about things normally without like overthinking kind of.
Mm, mm. Um, okay, got it. Um, did this carry over? Was this mostly in the classroom, Dakin, or was this anxiety kind of like ever present during your day? Like, did it come in waves or did it stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like situations make you more anxious than others. Like if you're taking a test in class, like and you want to do good, sometimes it'll make me more anxious. Or like for like a big like tryouts or something, feel a little more anxious. But yeah, it kind of comes and goes in waves.
Okay. Do you okay. Are there any other words that like feel really authentic? Like any words that really, you said overwhelm feels true. Are there any other words that would really describe like what it's like to be anxious?
Um, maybe just like stressed almost. I feel like kind of like stress and anxiety can kind of go together. Because I feel like sometimes the more you're stressed, the more you're anxious. Um, yeah, maybe like pressure. I kind of
Mm,
like associate with anxiety, like when you feel pressure from the world, from other people, from yourself, makes you more anxious.
yeah. Thanks, Taken. That's a really great answer. Thanks for connecting some of those dots. I think a lot of people, feel similarly, especially with how insane the world is these days. Um,
Yeah,
so I wanted to ask about your family. Does your family help you with your mental illness?
yeah, they're supportive. My mom, especially, kind of like helped me with it. Just like talking to her about it. Yeah, they're supportive.
Can you take us through the kind of the play by play of what it was? Well, first of all, do you consider yourself having a mental illness, or do you like how would you phrase it? Like how do you speak it to yourself? Like do you just say I deal with anxiety, or I have like an anxiety issue, or like how do you phrase it to yourself? Do you think you have a mental illness, or
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't really like to call it like a mental illness just because I feel like that's kind of like a negative term in my brain. Like when I associate like illness with things, I feel like something's like wrong. So yeah, I just kind of say like I deal with anxiety. But yeah.
Generalized anxiety disorder is a condition of excessive worry about everyday issues and situations. It lasts longer than 6 months, and in addition to feeling worried, a person may also feel restlessness, fatigue, trouble concentrating, irritability, increased muscle tension, and trouble sleeping.
okay, great. Well, then we're gonna use that. Okay. Can you take us through the play-by-play of when you spoke to your family about dealing with anxiety?
Yeah, it was like after soccer one day after soccer practice, and I was just kind of like not feeling the best. I was just kind of like a bad day all day, and then I just was talking to my mom. I was like, yeah, I think there's more than just like I think it's more than just like a constant worry. Like I think it's more like anxiety. And she's really supportive. She talked to me about like what we could do and things that might help.
Wow, that's great. That's actually a really important point you say. There's like a difference between constant worry and anxiety, right? Because temporary worry and temporary stress, that's kind of part of being human, like it's not easy to be human. And it takes definitely a self-awareness and and strength to actually bring that up to your parents. So it sounds like your mom was pretty responsive.
Mhm.
Um, is what would you have done if your mom, weren't so responsive?
I think that's a really good point. I think there's definitely like I feel like a lot of kids who go through things like I'm going through and they don't have like a supportive like home body or like a supportive person in their life that would help. So I think if your parents aren't really responsive about it and they kind of aren't like you, or maybe you're not like as close with your parents, I would definitely say like talk to a friend first. Like I know my friends help me just like talking about it, kind of like just like bringing it out, like saying it to another person, I think helps, even if it's not your parents, or like a teacher at school. I know some people feel comfortable talking to teachers at school, or even like I know there's like online websites where you can like talk to like random people about kind of like what you're going through. So I think if you're like less like willing to be open about it, not like willing to be open, but less like you don't have that confidence yet to tell someone in real life, I think over the phone is a good first step.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dig, and that's really awesome. Yeah, we can definitely provide some of those confidential phone lines. 100%. I know I've used a confidential phone line in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you overcome the social pressure of, in high school of talking about mental health? You mentioned talking to friends, I mean, how do you overcome that social pressure? Like how do you actually kind of build up, the confident, like how does that, yeah, how do you do that? Because it's a big wall to come up.
Yeah, I think it's super hard because obviously it's kind of hard in high school because it's kind of like one like definition of normal, and it's like you want to be like fit in and be considered normal, and then kind of just like you said, like kind of breaking that wall down of like opening up in like social environments about it is definitely something that's hard, especially in high school because some kids aren't as like accepting of others, and that's just how it is. It's high school. Um, but yeah, I think just like starting off small, like talking to a group of friends who you're most comfortable with, and then opening up to your family can be a big thing. And yeah, it's definitely like I feel like having like a mental illness or like a struggle with mental health is hard to talk about at school. But I think being confident in a way that's most comfortable for you, like even if you kind of want to like do good in silence, just talking to your friends about it, like you don't have to go and like help everyone, just like start off small with sharing your story.
Yeah, that's such great advice, Jake. And start off small with where you're comfortable. Yeah, you don't have to tell everyone. Just begin with one person.
Uh-huh.
That's really, really good. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how does um, how does dealing with anxiety, how does that impact you socially? Like in this current present, being Dakin in this, in 2022, how do you overcome, dealing with anxiety?
I mean, right now I have a good group of friends going, so I like to kind of vent to them about everything. And kind of socially, it's like if like at school, if you're starting to feel anxious, just know that it's better to like leave class than just sit there and like feel anxiety creeping up more. Like it's better to just take that first step and go for a walk or go to the bathroom when like you realize it's happening.
Good, great. Got it. So, okay. Do you have any like specific coping mechanisms that you use aside from going for a walk? Like is there any type of kind of self-talk that you use, any like positivity or any other types of strategies that you use to deal with your anxiety?
Yeah, I count to 10 a lot in my head. Just
Where did you learn that one?
kind of my mom, kind of myself. I just kind of feel like if you're like sitting there and you're just like worrying, just like sometimes just counting to 10 super slowly can just be like a nice little reset. And then also like it's like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. So it's like 5 things that you see around you, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you smell, stuff like that. So just kind of like little things that like help you get distracted, like kind of out of your own mind. Just little things like that.
Wow. Wait, so okay. I love that. Where did you is that 543, is that something else your mom taught you, or did you learn that from somewhere else?
Kind of my mom. I did, and then I had like an online therapist for a little while.
Oh,
Just
great.
yeah, just to talk about everything, and I learned that from her.
Yeah, well, I want to just acknowledge the fact, Dakin, that well, first of all, it's great there are people around you supporting you, and you're taking advantage of what they're suggesting. You're open to the suggestions. You're actually doing, like, how many times, how many times do you think, like, you've done that count to 10 thing? Like, in class, like, how many times do you think over the last, year have you done that exercise plus the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Like, how many times?
Over the past year, maybe like just like 10 or 15.
Oh, okay.
And I do that like once a week, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
What are what's the two? Okay, so it's 5 things that can you go through the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, so it's 5 things that you can see, 5 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So you kind of need some food around you, huh?
Maybe. Gum, candy.
Dakin is describing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique that can be a great coping skill for people who struggle with anxiety. This technique calls upon all of your senses to bring you back to the present. By identifying things in your physical world, you can slow your heart rate and take your focus off of the intense feelings of anxiety that you may be experiencing.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for that. Those are great strategies. I love that. What else? Is there anything else that's been most helpful to you in managing, maintaining, and improving your mental health?
We kind of already talked about it, like talking to friends. That's a big thing. Yeah, just kind of talking about it, honestly. And honestly, sometimes school helps. Like, it can make it worse, but it can also make it better.
Wow.
And I feel like sometimes if you're having a good day at school, you're not really thinking about anything, and then it's a good day. And then, sometimes school definitely makes it worse. Like you said, if you're taking a test or dealing with like things with friends or stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that's important for a lot of people to hear. And what are the good aspects of school that need to be expanded? Yeah, what are the good aspects of, like, what makes you have a good day at school?
Doing good in class. Like sometimes like school's kind of hard for me, so like sometimes when I like do good in class and I get like a bunch of answers right and I'm kind of all hyped up about it, like just like little things like that, or like you make hot chocolate in class with your friends. Sometimes in second block we do that. Just like little things. You go outside for a walk. And then I don't know, like more like negative days, like it's kind of like you just are in that mindset that you don't want to be there and everything's bad. So just like good days where you're like optimistic and like
Yeah.
excited about the rest of the week.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that's really important to hear that, it's still possible to have optimism even as you deal with anxiety. It's not like one or the other. You can still, that's really great, Dakin. Thank you for sharing that. If you were to what advice would you give a friend listening to their friend, share about mental health? Like, for the friends that you've shared your story to, what did you appreciate the most about, like, how someone listened to you, right? Like, what made you feel, yeah, Do you see what I'm asking? Like, what would you tell one of your friends, like, how to listen to someone or how to be with someone as they talk about mental health?
Yeah, well, I think that everyone's different and everyone's comfort levels are different. And that's why I like talking about it with friends, because you kind of know their comfort levels. So, like, I know, like, some friends would, like, want you to take action and, like, actively, like, try to help them through it and, like, talk to their parents. Like, I know some friends are like that. And then some friends just like a listener and they just like to kind of be, like, have someone to be a sponge and just kind of, like, hear them out. So I feel like feel your friend out, kind of feel, and you can even, like, straight up ask them, be like, how do you want me to help you? Like, how do you want to move forward? Just, like, positive questions to kind of, like, feel how they're feeling and, like, what they want the outcome to be. And then, yeah, obviously just being supportive is a big thing. If they're your friends, they should be supportive of you. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's so helpful. Those are really actionable steps for people listening to the podcast, especially high schoolers listening to the podcast, how they can support their friends from someone who has experience with it. So that's great.
Yeah.
And okay, last question, Dakin. Can you share a mental health success that you're proud of?
I mean, talking about it right now on the podcast, that's kind of big. And then, yeah, probably just accepting it myself. I think self-acceptance has been the most hard for me. Like, just being confident while having anxiety, just, I think, is a big thing that I'm proud of.
Well, I'm proud of you too. This definitely a success to speak like this as you're doing on this Finding Your Way podcast, Dakin.
Yeah.
And so this is just the beginning of your journey and continuing to grow your strength. And so I'm lucky to be here with you. I'm really thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you.
sharing. Is there any final thing you want to leave us with before we wrap up episode number 1, Finding Your Way?
It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to seek help. And I'm always here, and Alex is always here for anyone who wants to talk.
So good. So good, Dakin. Well, for everyone listening, we will provide resources to some of the practices and things that we mentioned today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and much love, everyone.